Take three. It's going to be one of those days. All right, folks, good morning and welcome to our Saturday video. You have to bear with me. I ended up waking up a lot earlier than I wanted to, but okay, sirrah, sirrah. Before we get into our video today, and yes, I'll explain this. I wanted to give a shout out back to the guys at the Bruised and Battered Hockey Podcast. I'll tell you about them in just a second. They gave a shout out to me and the video I did a few weeks ago. Why is the SP considered the better single A league? We did the comparison of the SP and the Fed. Anyway, they gave a shout out to me on that, on their podcast, episode 39. It's a podcast that I obviously listen to, and because I love podcasts, especially hockey podcasts. And these three guys, Alec, Jay, and Darren, they have themselves a fun little podcast. The three of them give a broad overview of news in not just the Fed, but also the SP and the ECHL. So obviously their net is cast wider than mine. They have a lot of fun. It's called BREWS apostrophe D, Bruised and Battered, because Jay always finds these really crazy beers that just, how can anybody drink that? But anyway, it's a really fun podcast, and I recommend that you check it out. They have an episode coming out every Friday. BREWS apostrophe D. It's on Spotify and YouTube. I think on Apple as well. But anyway, so shout out to those guys, and they do a phenomenal job. They have a lot of fun with what they do. And so I just wanted to give a shout out back to them and recommend you watch it. I don't feel like I'm in competition with these other podcasts. Everybody's got their own perspective, their own different view of things, and the variety is the spice of life. So I feel like you get different views, different perspectives. It makes for some interesting podcasts. So yeah, check them out. Check them out. I listen to them most every week. Unfortunately, I've missed a few weeks here and there, but yeah, they've been going on for about a year now. And of course, now that we're getting into hockey season, they're really going to ramp things up, as will I. So yeah, check them out. Okay, so today's video, the most intriguing locations that the FPHL chose for expansion markets. Now what I have here is all of our teams that we currently have. And this is a very crude geographical representation of the Fed footprint. You've got Watertown in the north. You have these guys over here in the northeast. You have Port Huron in Michigan. You have Topeka to the far west. Down here, you have Biloxi down by the Gulf of Mexican America, or whatever you want to call it. You have all these teams in the deep south. So again, very crude geographical representation. But I'm going to keep these magnets here to give you a little bit of perspective as far as some of, let's dismiss that. Okay, sorry. Had a little message on my phone that came up. All right. It helps to kind of give you an idea as far as geographically what makes some of these choices so interesting. Let me get my notes back up. So the first era of the Fed was really like the first 5 years. And then the league really went into more of a true expansion. That's our second era. We are kind of, we've just kind of transitioned into a third phase in the Fed. But for the first phase, I'm going to choose our red marker here, and if I can get it. talk about the placement of some teams. Now, as we started off the Fed, the first year, everything was here in New York or right around it. You had a team just over the Canadian border, Akwesasne. You had Danbury, literally 4 miles over the New York line in Connecticut. So, yeah, everything was pretty much New York Central. So you had that. And then the league said, hey, you know where would be a really good place to put a market? Danville, Illinois. 12 and a half hours away. Now, the first season, everything was right in New York. One team relocated to Cape Cod. So, but everything was within like 4 or 5 hours of travel or less. And then you had 12 and a half hours away, Danville, Illinois. But it worked out because it opened up westward expansion opportunities in the future. Now, the first iteration of the Danville Dashers lasted 9 years. So it carried the league through the first phase and into the second phase, through the second phase. Of course, Danville, at the time that the Dashers were brought in, the population of the city was about 33,000. They've lost about 5,000 people since then. It's a dying city, which is part of the reason why the second iteration of the Dashers this last year failed. We talked about that this last June. The Dashers, what went wrong. If you missed it, you can go back and watch that episode. It's if you scroll down in my channel, you'll find it. But for a while, it worked. And it opened up the gateway for teams to be placed in Dayton, Ohio, about here. You had the Prowlers come in when Dayton didn't work out. And even though the team was miserable and horrible, the Battle Creek, Michigan, there was a great placement geographically for a westward team. So it paid off dividends. And there wouldn't be a Topeka today if it weren't for Danville. There wouldn't be an Indiana today if it weren't for Danville. So it worked out. It panned out. Of course, they played in David S. Palmer Arena, 2,350. Is pro hockey coming back there? Probably not. Maybe juniors. But with the economics of the city, I don't see pro hockey returning. But anyway, this was in the second season of the Fed. Same season, the league said, let's go somewhere else. Let's go to Morrisville, Vermont. Way up there. Little dinky town, 45 miles to the east, or 45 minutes to the east of Burlington, which is right on Lake Champlain, the big lake that divides New York and Vermont. But this was kind of out in the sticks. Town is only 2,400 people. The arena sat 1,000 people. Green Mountain Arena. This was really the first true expansion into New England, even though there was a team during the second season in Cape Cod. They were a relocation. So, I mean, travel wasn't terrible, except for to Danbury, but it still was kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So out in the nowhere, in fact, that fans weren't coming. The 4 home games played, they averaged 265 fans per game. Excuse me. So the team folded, and that was it. 2 years later, the ice arena was sold and converted into warehouse space. Excuse me. So that didn't pan out. But it was an interesting attempt to get into New England. Excuse me. All right, the next one was even more interesting. Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Williamsport Outlaws. Now, the season before, the second season, there was a team in New Jersey. A little town called Wayne, about 45 minutes outside of New York City to the west. Team did great. won a championship, but they couldn't negotiate a lease with the arena, and so they moved to a baseball stadium. Yeah, literally. If you don't know the history of Williamsport and hockey there, yeah, really interesting. There was a promise to build an arena in Williamsport, city of about 28,000 people. So yeah, until that happened, they said, "Oh, we'll just we'll install boards and an ice plant and the chillers and just play on top of the baseball stadium." So they retrofitted the seats. Place sat about 3,000, which at that time was the largest capacity-wise facility in the league. But the team spent all of its money on the chiller and the boards and all, the retrofitting they had to do. And so there was no money left to pay the city for rent and utilities. And so they didn't pay, and the city finally got fed up and locked them out 41 games in. Fan support was not the problem at the time. Only Danbury was exceeding Williamsport with attendance. But when you're not paying the bills, things ain't going to pan out. So there you go. Okay, the last one that we're going to focus on for the first, well, actually, no, that's it for the first era of the Fed. So let's go to the second era and talk about the next interesting placement. Now, keep in mind, Vermont was no longer here. So we had a trek even farther into nowhere. Berlin, New Hampshire. Up in the northern part of the state where it really thins out and it's all mountains and trees and not much else. Little town of Berlin, 9,200 people, had an arena, Notre Dame Arena, that sat 1,680. But yeah, this was a trek to get to. You had to go to, if you're going to drive there, you have to drive to Boston metro area and then into New Hampshire. And then from the bigger cities in New Hampshire, Concord and Manchester, you had to go 2.5 hours north, in the middle of the sticks. And the placement was so remote, it just didn't work. Financially, the team after 2 years said, we can't do this. We can't continue. But at least they completed their years. Good team, second year, went to the finals. Lost in the finals, but yeah, the overhead cost was just too much for Berlin. Next one, I wish this would have worked out, and maybe it could have. I don't know. Cornwall, Ontario, not too far away from Watertown, pretty close. It was about an hour drive, so yeah. Great placement as far as that rivalry goes. Cornwall, not a small city, 47,000 people. And they were playing in Ed Lumley Arena, the Cornwall Nationals' first venture into the Fed for the Canadian city. Now, there were Canadian markets before Cornwall. There was Akwesasne, first 2 years, and then for a spell, we had teams in lower Ontario, not far from Port Huron, the North Shore Knights and the South, St. Clair Shores Fighting Saints. Just didn't work. They really didn't have a permanent home, so it didn't pan out. But anyway, Cornwall, great hockey history. They've had AHL hockey. They've had juniors hockey. There is, it's great. The arena, perfect. Sat 5,800 at that time, the largest arena in the league. Just didn't pan out. The Nationals on ice, they were decent, not great. But I think the reason why they had a problem drawing fans is because in this region of Canada. This is kind of where Ontario and Quebec meet. It's not too far from Ottawa. It's not too far from Montreal. But there are so many different little towns and cities through this area that have juniors hockey. It's saturated. And I think that's what killed the Nationals. Is you got a pro team in the midst of literally dozens of juniors teams that communities supported, and it just they couldn't get the fans in. Could it work again? Maybe. I don't know. Somebody would have to have deep pockets, and they'd really have to be a whiz at marketing and drawing people in. I think the placement was good. It just, again, you're going into an oversaturated market. The next one, and this was probably the best success story that the FPHL has had as far as an individual team, and that is Carolina Thunderbirds. Winston-Salem, North Carolina. This opened the gateway for all of this to take place. If it weren't for Carolina, you wouldn't have a Continental Division. So they opened the door. And the following season that Winston-Salem came in, Columbus came back in. Now, these two cities were SPHL cities at one time. Didn't do so great in the SP financially, doing great in the Fed. And like I said earlier, Darren with the Bruised and Battered podcast, he did a really great job of explaining economics and the status of the leagues. Really, really good. But anyway, this created a whole new world for the Fed. And because Carolina has been there, all of these teams have flourished. And the Fed has flourished. Of course, you're familiar with them. The Winston-Salem Fairgrounds Arena seats 3,150. The metro area of Winston-Salem is about 250,000 people. So it's a good community, and the arena's usually packed. Of course, they have also been very successful on the ice. Let's see, this is their 9th season coming up. Yes, 9th season. Thunderbirds hockey in the Fed. They have had one season where they were under 500 as far as winning percentage. One. And they won a championship. And of course, they've gone to the finals 3 other times. So, very successful team. All right. Next one. And this was kind of the last in the second era. It's a shame this didn't work out. Mentor, Ohio. A suburb of the Cleveland area. Mentor itself, 48,000 people. The Mentor Civic Arena sat 1,800. The team just didn't do well financially. A lot of mismanagement. A lot of poor decisions made. At one time or another, throughout the 2 seasons that Mentor existed, they had great players in their roster. They had MJ Graham, they had Parker Mescal, they had all sorts of players. And one by one, they would all get traded away for cash because the team was drowning in debt. And so they sold off their best players, and the team, unfortunately, kind of floundered as a result on the ice, which didn't help attendance. In the 2 seasons that the team was there, they drew 374 on average and then 652 on average. Not very good. We go into the third era, which really was right before COVID. This was kind of the start of the third era. We have the Delaware Thunder. Oops, you know what? We already have a D up. So let's do... Just made that a big smudge. Let's do T for Thunder. All right. Fan support was not a problem for the Delaware Thunder. The facility was a problem. There's not many ice sheets in Delaware. There are a few up in the Wilmington area, the metro area. Wilmington's not far from Philadelphia, so it's still a lot of people there, but those sheets are dedicated to amateur hockey and college. Delaware couldn't find ice sheet there, so they went to Harrington, Delaware, a little dinky town south of Dover. They have a casino and the fairgrounds. That's it. The ice arena was part of the fairgrounds. Only sat 700 people, and that was the problem. The problem was not the fan support, because every night you had 700 people in there. The place was packed. So some of the most loyal, dedicated fans I think I've ever met. Fantastic fans. Talked to many of them. It just didn't work because of the logistics of you can only get so much money in the coffers when you're drawing 700 fans a night. Teams struggled on the ice, but the fans kept coming anyway. Eventually, the fairgrounds committee said, we're not making any money here. Duh. We're kicking you out. So that was in the Thunder. By the way, a little update on this. The Thunder were planning on building another arena in Dover. There was even a site that was created, the Dover Arena, or dovercivicarena.org. It has since been removed. It's not even on the web anymore. The Facebook page exists, but has not been updated in quite some time. The last update was pretty much waving of the white flag. A lot of politics involved. All right. We have 4 more, and I got to get going here. So, next we have the Biloxi Breakers, originally known as the Mississippi Seawolves. Yeah, quite a lucrative market. The population of the metro area, Biloxi and Gulfport and all that area, 400,000 fans. You've got a beautiful arena, seats 9,150. And this has opened the way for expansion into the Gulf states and into the southwestern part of the country. So again, kind of like how this opened up everything, this opened up more everything. Obviously struggles on the ice, but it has created the ability to have teams in Monroe and Baton Rouge, and next year, Texas. Yeah, there will be a team in Texas. All right. Next curious placement, and I'll tell you why in a second. Okay. Bobcats. Geographically, it makes sense. You got a close rival now to Carolina, but this was an arena that was an agricultural center, had a dirt floor. Never had anybody thought about putting hockey there, but Barry Soskin and Chris Benarski decided this is a good location, and I think it has panned out very well. The only difficulty is the size of the general community. The population of the county that they are in is 28,000. So they're kind of limited. Now, the arena seats 3,650. Very nice facility. They've made an agricultural center into a hockey barn. Very good facility. Closest hockey before this was either Carolina or Roanoke, the Rail Yard Dogs, or the Knoxville, Tennessee, the Knoxville Ice Bears. So this is kind of like brand new hockey territory, and they're doing a great job as far as building the brand. So there you go. 2 more. We have, not too far from Danbury, Hudson Valley. Unfortunately, hockey in Hudson Valley on an organized pro level has never worked. There have been other teams that have played in the area. It's not a draw. It's not a draw. Of course, we know that things didn't work out for the Venom. 2 or 3 sentence capsule of that. The team was losing Elmira. They couldn't play in Elmira anymore. The league decided to just take the first person that said, I want to buy the team and move them. Okay, great. Here you go. That's Pat Manning. Yeah. Thank you for your payment of the franchise, and that's all the money you have. Yeah. Another case of, putting all your eggs in one basket, and then when you get to the second basket, oops. No money left. The team almost folded. PKB LLC came in, Parker Muscal and Kevin Kupia and a couple others. Saved the franchise, allowed them to continue playing through the year. They paid all the bills, and then became, kind of transferred into PD Ice Cats. They were playing in 2 different barns. Neither were a pro barn. You had Newburgh that's only sat 450. Then you had McCann Arena, a little better, but sat 1,280. And the team just didn't draw. Like I said, no pro team has ever drawn in the Hudson Valley. It doesn't work. All right, finally, we have... Yep, you see it on the board. Topeka. Groundwork was laid for this about 3 years ago by Matt Torgerson and some others. Matt Torgerson, is part of the minor pro hockey site. Actually, not so much now. He's busy with a lot of other things. He's working with a team in the FPHL. He's doing video coverage, play-by-play calling of juniors up in Alberta. So yeah, he's a busy guy. But anyway, he laid the groundwork for Topeka to come in, and different ownership group now. But 8.5 hours away from Indiana, 10.5 hours away from Monroe. Great barn. I just lost it here. The Stormont Vale Event Center, great arena, seats 73. They had a great turnout with the 4 showcase games that took place last year, over 3,000 every night. The community itself is about 230,000. So, and they've had pro hockey before. They've had juniors hockey. We'll see if it works. The main problem is they need somebody in this area desperately. That their long-term success depends upon it. So we'll see what happens. In case you're wondering, Texas, you're still talking 10 hours. So you need somebody in like Missouri or something, or Arkansas, to kind of bridge the gap a little bit, or somewhere else in Iowa or Illinois. I don't know. But anyway, we'll see how this works. There's a lot of excitement with the team, so hopefully it does work. There's a 3-year lease in place. We'll see what happens when we get to the second and third year. Has the league found a way of bridging this gap? But anyway, those are some of our most curious expansion locations. I know I've gone long, and sorry for that, but still under a half hour. All right, guys, I appreciate you watching. Make sure you're following me on here. Like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Follow me on Facebook. That's the most important place. All the news and information gets posted right there. And also, please follow me on the Flash Audio Network. The links are on my Facebook page. Thank you so much for watching. We will be back tomorrow with the 5 strangest stories from this last season. Have a great day, everyone.